Hi, Broadway fans. Welcome for another week of Broadway Breakdown here on Popcorn Talk. We're going to talk Jersey Boys, the film, this week, so stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Broadway Breakdown.
I just want to do like the music. But I have to do them away from the microphone, Phil. So I have to
like a whole arm movement as well.
Yeah, like really far up. Hey guys, welcome. Thank you guys for joining us for this week's discussion of Jersey Boys, our film discussion. I'm your host, Briana Phipps. You can find me everywhere, bphipps14, except for Snapchat. That's bphipps1214. And Jacque is back in studio with us today.
Holla! I'm 123 Jacque B on all platforms except for Snapchat, where I'm Jacque B123, because screw you, Snapchat.
And we have a new guest this week. We have Miss Marisa Serafini.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Marisa Serafini. You can follow me on Twitter at SerafiniTV. No numbers. Keep it simple for you all. Thanks for having me.
This is just... I didn't play this song last week because I wanted to have it for my final week of the show because it's my favorite song. You guys will do your diva songs today, but my diva song was "Oh What a Night." Every time I listen to it, it's just something you want to dance.
It's so good.
That's what the Four Seasons did so well. Their music just makes you want to dance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get just right into the show. What are your guys' overall thoughts on this film? Marisa, you want to start off?
I was really excited to watch this film because I knew when it was coming out, being a fan of the Jersey Boy production as well. Clint Eastwood, as a director, he's kind of hit and miss with me. But when I knew the movie was coming out, I was like, I have to watch it. I have to cover it, of course. So I was really excited to watch the film. There are some things that didn't translate as well from production to film. But as a film, I think it captured the essence of what the Jersey Boys was. It captured the tone and the feel of that era. And I think it was just, visually, it's really well done. I wouldn't really call it a musical. I would call it a movie with music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's because when you bring someone like Clint Eastwood on, they're going to try and, I guess, make it less like a musical and make it more like Gran Torino. But I enjoyed the film because I enjoy the music, and I think this is probably what a lot of critics felt, was that the film drags in certain points. And to me, the reason that it drags in certain points is because you only have the music playing in the background. I honestly think that the formula would have been better if they kicked up the music a notch.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to like this film a lot, and there are parts I really did. The acting I thought was phenomenal in the film. Obviously, the musical score is great, and I like the fact, and we're going to talk about that they didn't create an original song for it.
Why would you? It's the music of the Four Seasons.
Because it's Hollywood and they do original songs for Oscars.
I don't think it's necessary because this is a group of real guys. And if they created a new song, I wouldn't mind it, but I don't think it was necessary.
It's like going to Mamma Mia expecting the hits and then they throw in some random ass song that you don't care about.
Did?
Yeah. Just like they did.
So there are parts of the film I liked, but I did as well feel like there was dragging points where I was kind of like, let's get back to the music. Because that's what the play is, and that's what I saw first, so that's what I was expecting and wanting. So let's talk about the music. Let's go into it. So there was no original song, like we said, which for a film adaptation is strange. Usually they always try to add a film for Oscar bait, which Jacque loves. She always loves to talk about the Oscar bait.
I hate those Oscar bait songs. I hate them. They're so annoying.
But they also kept all the songs from the musical, which is also kind of somewhat unheard of. Usually they cut a few songs for time.
Can the audience hear this extra noise? That's just my question.
Okay. So what do you think about that they were able to keep all the songs at least in?
I think it's great, but at the same time, I still have the same criticism I had before, which is you would hear certain songs play under certain scenes, and you couldn't hear them very well, and so part of me is thinking you would have had more momentum throughout the whole movie if you maybe would have had more singing or pumped up those songs in some way. I don't know how, but
right. I like the fact that they kept a lot of their songs in it, all the recognizable ones, the iconic ones, and I liked how just the storytelling, in which we talked before we went live, is that they kind of kept a chronological order. But although there are some other songs that were cut, but I think for a film, yeah, I think they were nicely spaced out throughout the whole film. That it wasn't so overwhelming with just song after song after song. And I liked every song that we heard was all the ones that we already know just from pop culture.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Like, I like that they had all the songs. I thought some of the choices they made were weird. Like how, like, you would think during the montage songs, those would be the ones kind of playing under, like they did with Short Shorts. That made sense to me. But when it was like the studio recording songs and to have them kind of play out longer in some respects, like I thought that was a weird choice to make, especially because those weren't their songs. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that was part of the reason the film drug for me, is because we spent a large portion of this film on them becoming a band, which is a very short part of the play. So I don't know if it would have changed anything to kind of make some of those more montage moments just the underneath kind of like flash by moments, or like them singing and then transitioning and into different parts of their life. I don't know if that would have helped or not, but I think I kind of would have liked it to be a little less where this whole song is playing and we're watching this whole song play, and like Sherry is like, oh, we hear Sherry singing, and then it's like in the kind of background while they're practicing while this guy's talking about on the radio, and then it's the full performance of Sherry. It's like a song that's 3 minutes is now a 10-minute part of the movie.
Understandable. What I liked about what the film did that I just understood better as an audience member, I liked how the film clearly explained how each song was inspired and written, and like in the context of what was going on in their lives. Whereas in the play production, maybe I was just maybe too young to comprehend that. But I think the film did a great job of like, oh, this situation happened, this event happened in their life, which created them to do, which caused them to write this song, which, you know, created X, Y, and Z for their next song. Like, I think they did a good explanation of how each song came to be.
Yeah.
And I know you had a problem with like some of the arrangement of the songs.
Which I didn't know until you had told me that they chose to do them in chronological order, which makes sense.
It was just something I realized when I was watching it, is that because I don't know why, because I love that song, Oh What a Night. It refers to 1963. It came out in 1975, so that's why it was the last song.
Yeah, it's just the like inner person of me being like, I like that, oh, these songs are written about these exact moments. Why aren't we playing them during these exact moments? Why is he not singing about losing his virginity while he's losing his virginity? Why, when Frankie Valli's daughter died, did they not play the song about Frankie Valli's daughter dying? Why did they choose to play the song about his wife leaving? Mm-hmm. Like, those are like the weird moments for me of like,
yeah, I mean, part of me appreciated the fact that they chose to do the songs in chronological order, because they were trying to do a like kind of a That Thing You Do story where you see the trajectory of the band. But for people who loved the musical, it is a little upsetting when you see the songs that don't match certain situations, and you feel so used to seeing that.
Mm-hmm. I think it also, if you see it like the other way and you watch the film first and then go see the show, you're going to be like, wait, why are they playing this song now? Because you thought that they'd be playing them in chronological order.
I also think it has to do with the medium, though, because I think that people are so used to seeing things in a film kind of be more pedantic. Not to say that like all films are like that, but people are used to having films tell you something explicitly, whereas there's more freedom in the theater to take license with those things, which is, I mean, I guess we'll talk about the monologues later, but they didn't work as well in the film because film's not really a monologue medium.
Yeah, I think some people like get so accustomed of being hand-fed or spoon-fed of what song is supposed to be when and where, so we understand what's going on in the story timeline. And I think that was one of my bigger issues with this movie, that it was the timeline in their span of the career. There was really no clear cut of, 6 months passed, and then another 6 months passed, and then 2 years passed. Like, if we had just gotten a slate, or like, where are they in their lives, or like, what song came out, if you don't know like what exact year the song came out, it would be kind of hard to follow, like, where exactly in the point of success are they in the band's life, depending on whatever song.
Frankie
that helps with storytelling.
Had an issue with that as well, because he felt that the film wasn't properly time-wise portraying their rags to riches to rags.
Yeah.
Because you never really fully get, especially at the end, you don't get that they like then again went back to rags, kind of. That they were not. You only have the fact that they're telling you this.
You have the reporter girlfriend, whose name I forget, say, you know, you're never going to get out of this neighborhood, and that's literally the only reference you have to that.
And Christopher Walken telling them, like, oh, well, you're going to lose this much money if you do this. So, like, we just have to just assume after that, like, okay, they weren't rich.
And also, like, the play is split up into 4 seasons or 4 parts, and you don't really, it's alluded to in the film, but you don't really get that. You don't really get that unless you know about the play.
Right. And even visually, you think that would where the film might actually translate better visually from season to season, but when you're watching it, you can't really tell if it's winter. You can't really tell if it's summer or spring. So, like, I think that's where they had trouble of what time and where the band was.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't portray as well. But talking about the band and talking about these actors, let's get into them, because this did have some amazing acting, and I do give Clint Eastwood a lot of credit for not over-starring up the film. And he, they wanted to, and he said no. And he took a lot of people from the theater show, even if they weren't the people that were originally in those parts. John Lloyd Young.
Yeah, he was the original.
He was the original. Apparently I couldn't find out who they wanted, but apparently was not the original casting choice for the film. And then the person that was the original casting choice dropped out, and so they brought John Lloyd Young in.
I'm so glad they brought him in, though. I mean, he's the glue that's holding this film together to me. He's so good at that role. And when you have someone as iconic as Frankie Valli, whose voice to me, I don't know much about singing, but it seems like it would be very hard to match. He has such a distinctive voice. And I think that John Lloyd Young does a good job of matching his voice. That, I don't know. It seems like it would be hard if you're picking someone based on Hollywood chops versus based on matching Frankie Valli's voice.
Yeah, I think right now, like, this film is basically based on the talent of the characters rather than like what they were actually like in real life, their day to day. Because everyone knows their singing ability. No one really knows them as people, and I think that's what Clint Eastwood did great in the casting wise, where he got the people who could embody these people, could have the talent level as them, the original guys. And like, it didn't detract me from the movie when, you know how sometimes you can watch a movie be like, oh, it's that big name A-list, and then that takes you out of the film for a second. And I didn't get that really out of this movie, other than maybe Christopher Walken. But
he kind of is like, Christopher Walken plays those roles so often that it didn't faze me.
Yeah, at least with me for this one, because I did have a large problem with Christopher Walken in another film, Jungle Book. But at least with this one, like, he makes perfect sense to be a mafia boss.
Right.
Like, he has that air about him. He has the Jersey accent. Like, you know, he holds himself in such a way that really worked for me.
It's so funny. I was thinking about watching it because Christopher Walken, not so much now that his hair is graying, but when you look at him when he's younger, he looks very much like he's from Germany or Sweden, or he's got like that white blonde hair, the blue eyes, and so you don't think necessarily that he would read as Italian mob boss, but his voice and his demeanor are so much like that you just go past that.
It's the gravitas.
Yeah.
You know. But I think all the guys who were casted as the Four Seasons, I think they were great because they had the talent, and like, I can truly believe that these guys could have been them back.
Mm-hmm. And I love that actor Vincent Piazza, who was
Tommy.
Yeah, who was in Boardwalk Empire. Oh man,
he I believe is the only one that wasn't from the play.
Yes,
that was cast, right? Great.
Yes,
it was like, I'm pretty sure that.
I think so.
Yeah, because Eric Bergen, who played Bob Gaudio, he was in the international touring one. Yes. He opened up, and then Michael Amenda was in the international touring, but he closed it.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
I really, really enjoyed Eric Bergen as Bob Gaudio. I thought he did a really
good job.
Great job.
I mean, I think actually all these actors did a really good job because you really felt that they had some sort of camaraderie. And that's, I mean, to me, when you're casting a film, that should be more important than do we have like this many A-list actors, because we've seen so many films, the first 3 Star Wars films, and by first 3 I mean episode 1, 2, 3, where you cast big actors and they just don't correlate to each other.
I mean, that's what's a hit or miss about casting an all-star film, is that you either get a great film or it's just you're relying on the star power.
Right.
That's it.
People come to see it, and then after they come to see it, they're like, oh no, I immediately regret this decision.
And also, I want to give a toss out to Michael Lamenda, who played Nick Matze, because like that is one of the roles in the play that you don't really get to know, and I think that is maybe in large part due to the fact that he had died before they created the play. But that one scene where he just blows up about Tommy, like peeing in the sink and everything, I was like, oh my god. Like,
yeah, that's a funny scene, when you watch it back, because actually during the filming, I believe Clint Eastwood, he was actually very encouraging of improv. So he let the guys actually, improv a lot during that scene. But by the time that they edited that scene, it actually ended up pretty close, almost word for word to the script.
Wow.
So like even their improv, it became like pretty real to what they originally wanted.
Talking about the script, because I had read that Clint Eastwood, this was like one of the only films that he had rewritten his script for. Like usually he goes with the first draft, and this one he rewrote. I wonder if I kind of just want to know what that first draft was. Because I think that was the disservice in this film, was that the script just pushed everything too far apart and made it feel too long. Like it was only a 2-hour film, but it felt longer to me. You know those films where like you go and they're really long, but they feel short, and then there's the ones that are like not that long, but you just feel are taking forever to get to places.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, this movie is like all dialogue. There's really no over-the-top flashy musical numbers either. I mean, maybe the Ed Sullivan Show and a performance here and there, but it's very dialogue-heavy kind of movie, which makes it could like prolong the feeling of this is a long movie. But I think Clint Eastwood, he's more of a 1 take, 2 take kind of person, the first and second take, and then move on. For the script, I know that Frankie Valli and Bob Gaudia themselves in real life was heavily involved in creating this, so it might have been a little bit biased in the production aspect, and I think maybe that's where Clint Eastwood went in and like kind of made it more broad throughout.
The other problem I have with the movie is that the female, and not to say that in the 1950s females didn't have a lot of agency, which they didn't, but it's just you start this strong relationship with his first wife, and then we like forget about her for a giant chunk of time.
And then they bring her back in at Christmas.
And that to me, there was some sort of disconnect there, and there was the disconnect where you have him like meeting and flirting with the reporter, and then all of a sudden they're sleeping together, and then the same thing, we forget about her until the end when she's like, I can't do this anymore, and you're like, but where have you been for the last like 45 minutes?
Right.
And I think that's one of the things the film chose to bring in, these extra scenes, which of course as a film we're allowed more freedom kind of to play around with things, whereas on stage we have only this one quick thing that we have to do. We can't have all these elaborate scenes and sets. But I think that was what kind of like hurt the film, was that in the stage we were able to travel through so much time because they just narrated in between, like, oh, and then this and this was happening. So they were like, by the way, let me catch you up. Whereas this one, the narrations were used sporadically, like they weren't actually used as much until the very end, I felt. And that didn't catch us up as well to where we were.
Yeah, I agree on that. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because even the little narrations that they had, I don't know what it is about it, and I don't know if it's the fact that a lot of these narrations were done in close-up, which for me, too much close-up on a narration in a movie, it doesn't have the same effect as somebody monologuing on stage. So it was obviously apparent to me when you were watching the movie, you have this kind of like, why am I in your face all the time? This is weird. And you keep narrating, but then we kind of forget about that. Whereas it's so natural on stage. It's so natural because you're actually talking to someone. And it didn't have that feeling when you watch the movie. It didn't have that feeling of somebody having a conversation with you.
Yeah, and I think that's where the film kind of lacks in storytelling, because they're breaking that fourth wall when they're talking to you, but you can't really get that live reaction back to them.
And breaking the fourth wall doesn't always not work in film. I don't want to say that either, because you think about movies like Deadpool, where it works very well, and you think about I'm trying to think. I'll come up with another
Come up with an example.
I'll come up with another example.
I mean, I think that they did use it well in certain aspects. Like Bob Gardiola, when he's watching and just leans back. Sorry, I'm going with my friend. Leans
Saved by
back
the
on
Bell.
the bar.
That's not a movie, but still, it worked a lot in Saved by the Bell.
But yeah, he just turns around at the bar like he's talking to the bartender, but he's talking to the camera. I think in instances like that, where you can almost be replacing a person, made it work better than just them staring off into the distance and all of a sudden talking.
Right. I liked the opening one. The opening one where you have Vincent Piazza kind of like walking around and setting the scene. That seemed very real to me. But towards the end where it's all of a sudden monologue, you're like, this is a very different format from what I've been watching.
Right. It felt weird because like the first probably third of the movie, we got the narration from the three guys, and then you're kind of expecting Frankie's, and you really don't get it until the end after all of that. And then it was like one person at a time because they broke away from their already structured format, did not have it for the last third, and then to do it again in a monologue. There was just no consistency with the narration, which I think was a problem in their storytelling.
Yeah, definitely. And I almost wish that this had been more of like a straight film with just songs kind of in the background completely, or been a musical.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because they wouldn't have to do the narration if they had just kind of skipped over some performances maybe.
Yeah.
Or had them in the background, or had them shortened like Walk the Line does.
Yeah.
So let's go talking about that and going off of the film. Because it didn't do that extremely well in the box office. Like, everyone thought this was going to be a hit because it was such a hit on Broadway, but in the box office, it got, like a C+? It basically is what they averaged it out to.
Kind of mediocre, and it opened like fourth, but again, that weekend it was up against all these other big movies. It's like, I believe Maleficent was out, and How to Train Your Dragon 2, like all these big sequels were like coming out the same weekend, so it did have a lot of box office competition on the same weekend. But also this is a movie that's not really geared towards the younger demographic, I would think. I think it'd be geared towards, like, my father's demographic.
Yes.
The people who grew up in the 60s and 70s and know this music. I mean, we know it because we're big into musical, but, like, I feel like the younger 20 millennials would not know this.
I also feel like it's not that this music doesn't appeal to kids because, you know, while I'm on the older end of millennials, I still consider myself one. I enjoy this music, but at the same time, it's not something I would seek out if I wasn't a theater person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little bit of a different thing because I grew up with listening to it because that's what my dad listened to. So I knew this music beforehand, but I will say I didn't know anything. Like, I didn't know that all these songs were the same group.
Yes. Yeah. I know I had, you know, but it's interesting because when you're a kid and you're just hearing music on the radio, you might not necessarily like associate certain songs with certain people. But as you get older, it was the same thing for me. I am older and I was like, oh, that song was also written by Frankie Valli, and that song was by Frankie Valli. That's crazy.
Like, You're Just Too Good to Be True. That was like the biggest surprise. I was like, that's them?
Right?
That's the same people that sing Sherry?
Yeah.
Well, same person, I guess, because most of them weren't in the group anymore.
Right. It was just those two guys, Frankie and Bob.
See, like, my dad, shout out to my dad, he was a big Four Seasons fan, so, like, I listened to all the music when I was a kid, and then when I heard about the Jersey Boys Theater, I was like, oh, they are the same people, too. But, like, I was big into musical theater in college, and we would listen to the Jersey Boys soundtrack as warm-up. Like, so, like, I knew the music.
Yeah.
It's great.
I mean, it's good. It gets you wanting to move your body, so it's a good physical warm-up. Plus, it's just fun to sing. And as a girl, you can sing all the songs that men are singing really easily because you don't have to lower your voice. Except for, like, Nick Massey's little parts. I don't try anywhere to go near those.
There's an album, though, where they have songs from the original soundtrack, or the original Broadway cast, the movie soundtrack, and then from the actual Four Seasons. So it's a little bit of everything if you want that album.
Nice.
That's fun. You can put it in our comment section for people, maybe, like where they can buy it.
Yes, I can put an Amazon.com link.
Okay, so I skipped ahead and I forgot to go over your guys' diva songs. Marisa, for you, since you haven't done this before, this is just the song of the show that, like, you have the most fun singing, that, like, if you're in your car, you're rocking out to it.
I always sing the finale.
Who Loves You?
Yeah, Who Loves You, Pretty Baby. Like, when I'm because I played the Jersey Boys soundtrack probably once every 5 months. Like I love the soundtrack, and that's probably the first song I always go to, the last song first. So I love it. It's so catchy, and it leaves you on a happy note. And I think it's a great finale song to lead people on. So yeah, that's probably mine.
Mine's the same as yours. It's What a Night. I just love that song. It's so much fun.
The best part about that song is just me singing as a kid, not knowing anything about what it actually is talking about. It's the same thing as me singing Spice Girls as a kid, watching Mrs. Doubtfire, everything going over the
And
head.
you can tell the thing, I mean, I'm such a fan of disco music, and you can definitely tell that there are disco era influences on that song that make it different from the earlier Four Seasons stuff, which is really, not that their earlier stuff isn't amazing, but it's that little disco flavor that gets me going.
So we've kind of talked a little bit of what it lost going from the stage to the screen. But I kind of want to go a little bit more into it because I do feel that this is a very different film than it was a show. Because the show kind of felt like a concert to me, whereas the film just felt, a little more like me being just peering into their lives rather than being a part of their lives.
Right.
I think that's what the biggest change was for me. I don't know. Do you guys think differently on any of that? Do you think that the stage version was able to do something better or worse?
I think what's great about the stage is like you're physically there and it's kind of in your face in a good way. Like it could be very visually exciting and like dramatic. If something happens, I can't imagine what the car scene looks like in real life. And I think that's where maybe the film, because visually it looks different, and like there's saturated color tone throughout, and if you're a film major, like I'm gonna watch this because of color tone, that's not what you're gonna say. It doesn't visually look enticing to watch as a film, and I think that's maybe where people might not want to watch it. It could have been like, oh my god, in your face, overwhelming, but I think that's where the film production lacks, because I think in theater it's more engaging, where the film isn't. The film's more voyeuristic, but you're not a part of it.
Mm-hmm. There are things about the film that I do appreciate. I mean, I appreciate that it looks like they put forth a lot of effort into like costumes and set pieces and things like that. That I love watching a period piece just to see what people do with costumes and set and whatnot. I love that scene when they're all in they're at that fancy party. They're invited to that fancy party by that guy whose name I forgot. And the women's costumes are so beautiful in that scene. And then, they pick on their earlier costumes, like his first wife, Frankie Valli's first wife, is like, Frank Sinatra wouldn't wear that. And so I love moments like that. I love film for moments like that. But at the same time, and I've said it on this podcast before, there are things that theater offers that you just can't get in film. You just can't get that monologue where it talks right to you, where you feel like that person is speaking to you and you have more creative license. And I've made the comparison to Wicked before, where they're making that movie of Wicked, and I don't know how they're going to do Defying Gravity to make it feel like you feel when you're in the audience watching Defying Gravity.
Where it gives you that same feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that's a large part of it, is like when I saw this show, we were all on our feet during that last song during Who Loves You. And like when they're walking all back out into the spotlight one by one, you kind of get that overwhelming feeling of like,
because you feel like you're actually at a concert.
Yeah.
And you get excited, and the film just didn't deliver the excitement for me in that same way. And like I said, the acting was amazing. There was definitely parts of the film, like I loved being able to go like into these different sections of their lives that we didn't explore in the theater show, but I just didn't get that sense of like happy, like overwhelming happiness watching it that I got with the play. And and part of that is the use of lighting on stage. We talked a lot about that. This play got best lighting, and they really used it well. Like in the stage version, like you're backstage, you're in front of the stage, you're the audience, you're on the side, like it just makes you feel so much a part of their lives and so much a part of all of this experience that they went through, which is what I think they ultimately were really trying to convey. And as you said before, that they kind of involved themselves in the film, they took themselves out of the play. They took them out of the creative process completely, which I think maybe might have actually been what kind of ruined the film. Maybe they were too involved.
Yeah.
It is, if you're talking about something that is has a biographic element, it's hard to be objective because you experienced it. And it's also when you're looking at your own life, sometimes things to you are really important moments that maybe are like somebody outside is going to say, well, that might not resonate with this story that we're trying to create or with the audience. So if you want to, I feel like if you want to be so precious about those moments, write a biography, you know, because you're going to have to do some give and take if you're creating a movie or a show.
That's why they started off with, like, in the play, like, you ask 4 different guys, you get 4 different stories.
Yes.
Because that's what you get when you ask 4 different people. They're all going to give you them being kind of the hero, usually, of the story,
right,
and everyone else being kind of the mess-ups.
Right.
I think that's the interesting thing for the movie and the play itself, like that Rashomon effect, where you get... In the film, you can definitely tell that Frankie Valli and Bob Gaudio are the good guys, but if you think about it, those two in real life were a part of this production. So it might, like you said, be a little bit more objective and biased in that sense.
Yeah, which, I mean, collectively, no group is going to go down because of one person completely. So, yeah.
Unless you're the Beatles and it's Yoko Ono. Just kidding. Just kidding.
So while Tommy, he did kind of destroy the group financially, it was Frankie and theirs decision to keep faithful to him and to not let him just go down and to pay off his dues and debts and to let him, even though, they kept having fights, to let him keep being in charge. I mean, you have to take accountability for the fact that you let that happen as well.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me watching it, and is wondering, you're like, Tommy, what the fuck? Because you're like, how do you rack up this much money and have this history with the mob, not, having it occurred to you that they're going to come after you? There was some sort of, I was like, I feel like there's a piece of the puzzle I'm missing and no one's telling me.
Yeah, and I feel like in today's society, I don't think friends are that loyal to each other to take on other people's debts
these are mob
anymore.
people, though. That's a little bit different.
But having, the band themselves, they were friends at some point. They worked with each other, but, they were loyal enough to take on Tommy's debt. Mm-hmm. Where I feel like that happened in today's life, everyone else would be the same and get out.
You don't see it as often today. Yeah. People definitely, I do think, used to have a loyalty to each other, especially from small neighborhoods where you grew up together. Mark last week had said that that's one of his favorite parts of the play is the Jersey handshake and being like, we don't need a contract. This is our contract, and that actually would stand.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It meant something.
Yes.
Whereas today you'd be like, I'm not going to sign a contract, shake my hand.
Right.
Now I'm taking all the money and leaving.
There is I know they say don't go into business with your friends, but there is a certain sense of when you've grown up with someone and you've been through so many things together. These guys went to jail. So I think that part of that loyalty stems from their experience with each other.
And I think that's kind of like how you said, how did Tommy not think this was going to happen? Maybe it's just he'd been helped out by the mob so many times. He'd been helped out by his friends, his family, whatever, that he always thought he was kind of above it, that nothing would ever happen to him.
Yeah.
Maybe it was that loyalty that kept him, feeling safe.
This is a guy who blows his nose into towels in the... I was like, don't do that! That's disgusting!
Nasty.
All right, so let's just go down the line of which do we prefer, the show or the film? Marisa?
It'd be hard for me to say, because it's been a long time since I've seen the play version, in honesty, but I like both for both. The film for it just as a filmmaker or as a film person. I enjoyed the movie. I think the storytelling, it made me understand things a lot better, even though I couldn't tell the timeline. But it conveyed things in ways that I didn't get from the theater aspect. But I do enjoy live production as well, because I find that actually more engaging.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm right there with you, Marisa. I feel like there are certain things that you can't get you can't translate from theater to film, some of those interaction moments and some of the being able to fuck with the timeline, but there are certain things to me about this film that are really interesting and really wonderful, and I like a lot of the cast members. So
yeah, for me, had I seen the film first and the show after, maybe I would have liked the film a little more. I think seeing the show first gave me this expectation of the film that it didn't meet for me. That being said, like I said before, the acting's amazing. I do appreciate that they still gave us those extra little scenes that we got to peer into their lives. But I'm going to go theater on this one.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, guys, that's about it for us today. Next week, I will not be here, unfortunately, but Jackie's going to take the reins.
We're doing View from the Bridge by Arthur Miller. And I also did an interview with Tana Frederick for the play Sylvia that was on Spotlight On. I've posted it on Broadway Breakdown, the at Broadway B Down, so you guys can find it there.
Yeah, and you guys can find us, like she said, on Twitter at Broadway B Down. We have a Facebook page. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to YouTube. Right here down below in the comment section, let us know on our iTunes. Please, please, please comment, rate, subscribe there as well. We love to hear from you, and we'll always shout out your little notes that you give us. Let us know what shows you want to see us do. Where can they find you, lovely ladies, one last time?
123 Jackie B on all platforms.
You can follow me singing the song at Serafini TV.
And you guys can find me at bphipps14 on Instagram and Twitter. And later tonight, 8 p.m. on AfterBuzz TV for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend if you're a musical fan.
Producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network. We would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.